And we're live.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, and Dark Lance Scourges to that 6+++ show. I have to count those very carefully these days after getting it wrong a little while ago. Absolutely, it's completely shattered my confidence. I am your host, Tom. I have been in Scandinavia for a week, but I'm now back, and everything has changed. The world is different. New games, new rules, new armies, new attitudes to take forwards. But I'm very excited for it, and I'm really excited for my first show of 10th edition. So today we are going to be talking about tactical objectives and scoring them in the game as they currently stand, and some of the things we've learned from our early games about list design and approaches to try and make sure you get the most out of your tactical cards. But first we're going to do a bit of hobby roundup and then a bit of Plus roundup, because we're busy boys at the moment. We've got a lot of stuff coming out to you, and we want to let you know about it because we're really good at self-promotion, possibly the best. And without further ado, let's introduce some people. I have to start, of course, with my dear leader, Chris. How you doing, Chris?
I'm very well, thank you. How
Excellent.
are you?
I'm really good, genuinely really good.
Refreshed from
Quite
your
bubbly, yeah. I
Norwegian run?
exercised and I ate nothing but cheese and ham for every meal for a week, which is a strange combination of things, but it seems to have worked. And
I didn't
Norway's
realise that
absolutely
was
beautiful.
the Norwegian delicacy.
They eat like monsters. They eat like absolute monsters. Yeah, for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It's just meats, cheese, bread. Just have at it. I also ate elk, reindeer, moose, and whale. Yeah.
Wow.
So you had a whale of a time then.
Not all in one meal,
Oh,
but
dude.
it's pretty good. And some very nice trout.
What was your favourite out of all this?
It was actually the trout, but the reindeer was also very special. Very, very tasty. Sorry, reindeer fans.
Sorry,
of which,
Rudolph. But
yeah, sorry, Rudolph. But really, really tasty. Chris, has anything happened to you in 40k lately?
I have been doing a little bit of modelling.
Yes, you have.
And I've been painting some Warhammer too.
Okay.
I,
Hey! Hey!
I have painted 5 warp spiders.
Sick.
I have
Very cool.
painted a war walker.
Very nice.
They're all bright pink.
They are. I like the scheme. So that's a change in direction a little bit towards the bright pink.
The way the army works is that it's kind of there's 3 colours. There's pink, blue, and white.
Okay,
And
so you're going to have like different
independent.
strands of it.
Yeah, so like for example, my Howling Banshees, I've got 2 units. They're white. One I've got pink hair. One's got blue hair. My Dire Avengers, I've got 10 blue, 10 white, 10 pink.
Oh, that's cool.
Basically, because I just get really bored of painting the same colour.
Amen.
So the whole army is one of these 3 colours. So my next warp spiders, I think I'm going to do all the warp spiders. I'm going to use 3 units of 5. I'm going to do more pink, but I'll have different colour helmets. So these ones got pink. The next one will have white. The next one will have blue.
That's extremely cool.
And so I've done that, and then I also painted a second zone thrope.
Haha, yes, yes. Just 16 to go.
Yeah, exactly. I've decided
Blue and white. Were those colours seem familiar? Isn't that Ben Pierce's paint scheme as well?
Yeah, I think Ben Pierce does like a
Tom,
lot.
right?
He uses a lot of the same colours as Chris. Ben Pierce, friend of the show. Ben Pierce paints a lot of, and Eldar as well. Actually, incidentally, in
That's
a very
what I mean,
eerily similar scheme.
I mean, his
Chris.
stuff does look like 100% better than mine. So
that wasn't the way I thought you were going to go with that. To be fair, Ben is a very talented painter.
No, yeah, if you ever get to play against Ben Pierce, his painting is exceptional.
Yeah, his gaming bang average, painting
bang
exceptional. Yeah.
He wears Crocs. He doesn't deserve to win.
He lost to some chump called Josh Roberts at the weekend, so and nobody else.
With
So,
a
yeah,
rank as well.
I know.
Game
Outrageous.
6, he's gutted. I spoke to him.
That was his moment, man.
My 2 units are going to be the nicely painted army.
They look great. They look great.
I'm just really airbrush, taking my time, not rushing, which I do on everything else.
No, you got time, don't you? Because if you're playing for the book, I think you've got a bit of a run up, and you can just get it nice.
Just as and when I get time. I mean, obviously, I've got a few Eldar bits on the way, which are going to be painting and building for any future events in the near future. But at the same time, like all Eldar players, I'm also just waiting to see what will change over the next week or 2.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't done anything crazy like gone and bought some Wraith Knights because that'd be silly.
Just borrow mine if you want to use Wraith Knights. Yeah, safer.
I mean, who knows? Maybe it'll turn out they're still really good.
I'd really like 1 to be relevant. I would really like that. Because I love the Wraith Knight so much, but we just need to get it into the right spot. It feels like it's such a hard thing to do because if they tweak it wrong, it'll just be useless, and that'd be really sad. But we'll wait and see.
Yeah, we'll see. But that is my hobby roundup.
Excellent. Very, very good. Kobe Waters says, good evening, gents. Hello. Welcome. Nice to have you here. Anyone else listening in, do pipe up. Let us know what you're up to tonight. It'd be really nice to hear from you. I'm also joined tonight by an unusual presence. My sensei, my mentor, my long-time irritant, John Scrivens. How are you doing, John Scrivens? You're right.
I'm all right. Yeah, not too bad. I'm currently surrounded by probably an unhealthy amount of plastic spoon because apparently the start of an edition means you have to take on at least 3 projects.
Yeah, I've done the same thing.
On.
I remembered that I'd bought a bunch of sisters' stuff when I got home today. I was like, what the fuck have I done?
I had heard about that.
Yeah, well, you were there, man. I bought it from you. What have you been doing? What are these different projects?
So, at Home Nations a couple of months back, when I was helping out with Team Wales, I got put onto Necrons, and I was just like, "Cool, this feels actually quite a fun army that kind of plays into actually some of my kind of play styles." So,
yeah, man,
doing the sensible thing, I went and hit everyone up that had the Imperium magazine. I went, "Can I take it, please? Can I have them?" So now I've got trays of bloody Necron characters everywhere.
Yeah.
God knows when I will finish painting them all. But
you struck at the right time, because this is the sort of the autumn of the Imperium magazine cycle, where the Imperium magazines are brown and droopy on the tree, and often start falling onto eBay or into other collections as the luster wears off. So you've nailed it. Yeah. And we're going to have them out in Crusade, but we'll talk about that in the Plus roundup, because the Necrons are going to be a big part of where we're going with our narrative content. And have you got any games in yet, or have you witnessed any games?
I've actually avoided playing. So I was at a friendly barbecue on launch day, and it was very hot. So I did the sensible thing and just went, I'll sit outside for a bit. You 6 play games, and I'll just stand there with an iPad, being a TO, going, "No, you got that wrong, you idiots," and feel really smug about it. So it was kind of good for me, because actually I got to see, I think it was 4 different armies.
That's pretty
2
cool.
Tau,
Yeah.
2 space, but I got to see kind of how it was all playing out, look at how the terrain kind of interacted or didn't interact, and get a feel for it, which was nice, because it was helpful for me from a standpoint to kind of gauge how the questions would come out as well, because I've got an event in August I'm trying to run, and kind of running with that, kind of getting my head around how people might misinterpret rules was kind of useful early on, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll see.
And obviously that's local gamers to us from the sort of Tring Club.
Yeah.
How did they find it? I'm curious. Obviously, this is quite a lot of more casual and chill players. How did they find getting to grips with 10th in those first games?
It seemed kind of a mixed bag, that people got their head around it, but there was still a lot of that throwback sort of problem where, say, Space Marines, you take something that in 9th edition you're like, this will just deal with any armor possible, and then you then slap it into like toughness 12, going, I'm bouncing and I'm hitting on 5s, what's going on? And suddenly the whole thing with Oath the Moment having to be one target you just focus down. If you split your fire, suddenly that target doesn't die, and it was just I think it was a lot of learning, and I think we're going to see a lot of that to start with, where people, especially if they're not literally hitting the ground running with it, having to figure out how to recalibrate their army. And for me, I've got quite a few deep armies of like things like my Orcs and my Dark Angels, but I'm still finding I don't necessarily have enough high strength guns. So I'm like, where do I need to fill those voids? And like, is it infantry? Is it tanks?
Yeah.
I feel like tanks might be a trap. It's like, it's that whole chicken and the egg situation, isn't it? Where you need these solutions, but then you're giving someone else an opportunity to use their big guns. So it's like, I think it's going to be quite exciting to see, but yeah.
Sure, and it's a little different, isn't it, to 9th, where I think, when 9th came out and those early books and rules came out, it was like, oh wow, this is all going up a level, everything's killing everything, infantry especially are killing the shit out of everything, eradicators just pop whatever they look at, etc, etc. And this, as you say, is a bit different, because we're just dealing with that new toughness scale where things are just, everything goes into things slightly differently. Paul was firing some bolters at my raiders today, and it's like, T8 raiders, go to hell. Bolters aren't going to do it. Bolters will not cut it, sir. You will need real guns if you want to hurt my boat. But real guns do just kill them, is the good news, so it's fine. But bolters don't.
Yeah,
so that's quite, is that a real gun? That's a whole other planet of gun, but we'll talk about them later. Oh my word, D-weaponry. It's horrible. No, that's great, man. I was sad not to make it, but I will hopefully be able to play with some of those lads soon. We're trying to get 2v2, aren't we, lined up for later in the week?
Yes.
All Imperium, all Marines, everything run into everything.
I'm not allowed to bring knights because
I told you not to bring
check.
2 knights.
I was like 1,000 points. That's fine. It wasn't 2 knights. It was 2 knights and an assassin.
It's the 2 knights with the centerpiece upgrades from Josh Roberts' GT winning list and a Vindicator. And I was like, I don't know how well that'll go. I think that'll be sad for people.
I was going to bring my dice. It would have been all right.
You can run them on Friday if you want when you and me play. I'm happy to have a pop at them. Great. Well, also here tonight, it's your boy Swissley. How you doing, Davey?
Hello. How are you doing?
I thought he was asleep.
That's why he puts the sunglasses on so he can just kip out midway through. No, I'm great, man. How are you? Anything new with you?
Oh man, what is new? So obviously Leviathan came out. But
yeah,
loads of Tyranids that are not going to go in my list. It's going to be sick. No, I've got 5 Gorns. I've got 5 Barbs. They're going in. And then I've dropped £120 on 2 Haruspex Dash Exocrines and a Tyrannofex.
Good lab.
So that was fun.
Big monsters, yep.
Yeah, so they're painted and they are in the list. So yeah, that's cool. But no, it's all good, man. It's been so I'm in a bit of a rush to get these done. They are done now, but got to do 3 Von Ryan's Leapers, and then my list is done for this weekend's GT in Barcelona.
Yeah, I saw those models in person for the first time. They're awesome. Oh, Barcelona! I think you should make us a little live, Dario, whilst of you and Aaron going out there, if you can.
Yeah, lads on tour vlog.
That would actually a vlog would be really fun. That would be really good.
Just like
I think we're going to try and record stuff, but it's whether or not we remember, and that's the thing, right? You always start off with good intentions, and then it's 5 pints in. It's like when I can't even remember to take pictures during my games. Never mind do a vlog.
I'm the opposite. I take tons of photos in games, and then I don't think I ever look at them again. I just forget. There's just so many, unless there's something really funny happening every now and again.
I watched a really good video the other day. I'll find out the name of it and I'll put it in the chat. But it was a chap who won an RTT in York, or a GT or RTT, I can't remember which one, in America. And he was a really nice description of everything that happened. But he had pictures on his video, so explain what he was doing and the scenarios and stuff. So I am feeling like doing one of those about this GT.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be content we could make that we should make. That'd be really nice. Nice to have.
I'll rock a bit of that going on.
Brilliant.
But other than that,
are you excited to play in Spanish?
Yeah, actually. So
I've
got my cue cards actually here that I'm learning. Fase de mano, which is command phase. Fase de movimiento, which is movement phase.
What's Spanish for "take your toys off, you little bitch"?
Yeah, I don't know. Tomas tu mierda.
Quickly.
Yeah, rápido, pronto, eh?
I think it'll be really, really interesting, and it'll be when you're back. We'll have to do a show covering just that because I think that'd be really interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be super interesting, and the event organisers under real pressure at the moment, guys. Because if you don't even if you're going to events anywhere in the world at the moment, they're under real pressure.
They are.
When do you do a list cut off and stuff? And I think that these guys in Barcelona have done amazing, right? They've really tried to flex for everyone, and yeah, they're great. They've been great so far, so I'm really excited about it.
It's unleashed some real creativity amongst TOs at the moment, as we saw from the Battlefield Birmingham terrain packs earlier on. Which,
oh my god, so
which I'm an enormous fan of. It would be a shame if you just couldn't fit your problematic models on the board. Oh, it's so good.
Hope you weren't planning to hold an objective in the normal.
Yeah. It's just like, oh man, I want someone at the event. If you go to Battlefield Birmingham, if you can find me a picture of 2 Imperial Knights in 2 corners and 2 Wraith Knights in the other 2 corners, just shooting at each other. I would love to see it. I think that'd be really fun. I'm super on board with that.
I suppose it encourages combat, right?
yeah, potentially. Absolutely.
It's like playing laser. All the buildings are so close together. It's like going to Laser Quest.
Yeah, I think combat could be quite fun on it. I think Desolation Marines will also really enjoy it because there's some of their predators won't be there and they can just plug away. But no, I think it looks interesting. It might well be that more dense boards are how we go forwards, but it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, there's dense, and then there's these boards though. Like, I'm looking at them.
Can never have enough terrain, never enough places to run out from and stab folk. Love it.
Insane.
It's just I want to be able to stage a bunch of Drakari angry things in every little block and just never get Overwatch. That's what we want. That's the dream.
But also, it's just how it's so in the middle.
Yeah,
all the edges are wide open, so flyers can just rampage straight down the edge and still see.
Battlefield Birmingham flyer meta incoming. That'd be fun.
Or teleporting units.
Teleporting would also be fun.
Yeah.
To be fair, that is how you use your big knight, isn't it? You just go whoop, turn up behind. Shout out to the chat. We've got Jack in as well. There's a lot of wholesome chat about Night Lords converted models going on in there. You love it. Nothing more wholesome than converted Night Lords with weird axes and skin and skulls and all that stuff. That's
so wholesome.
That's what we love. That's the community just giving back. Brilliant. Okay. Plus roundup, bit of self-promotion, which we are known to be very good at. So, Chris, do you want to start us off?
So, as we have long been promising, we're set ourselves a challenge of producing kind of like some quick-fire videos to talk about every single army and every single index in the game. So that for those of you who want to quickly understand an army, you can just watch these 2 kind of 10-minute videos, and then you'll know all the key information. So part 1 is kind of based around the army rule, the enhancements and stratagems, and then part 2 is about the key data sheets. Obviously, to some extent, it's us saying these are the data sheets that we believe are key. So you know, maybe we have missed something. Let us know in the comments. But
absolutely
do. It's just designed to, so comments can like promote discussion, which they're kind of already doing, which is great. But generally, it's just I can just get through a few episodes and just kind of have a better understanding of each of the armies, just so you know what to expect at the base level.
Completely.
I think the difference between turning up to a game and having no idea what an army is capable of, compared to turning up and be like, well, okay, I know these are the key tricks. So, for example, the Eldari one, as and when we do it, apart from, hopefully it won't just be Wraith Knight, but it'll be something like Phantasm. That's an incredibly important strategy.
Oh my word, isn't it?
And why. And each of the episodes is designed to do that. So far, Tom has done the 2 Drakari episodes.
Yep.
As well as the 2 Gene Stealer Cult episodes.
Both very fun.
And those are up. And then we've just put up Davey's first Tyrannid one.
Mm-hmm.
And then to come, we have also got the next Tyrannid one, and then Davey's done his first World Eaters one.
Yeah.
And we've got lots of other ones in the pipeline.
Yeah.
Blood Angels next.
Yeah, Blood Angels is next for me, and we are literally just going to keep going until we've done them all. There's no reason not to. We're really enjoying making them. It's useful for us because we're learning what all the armies do, and I think if you're looking to come for literally like, I want my 3 units to spam and that's it, this isn't what we're doing, right? We want to orient people in their faction. We want to have test out a few of the ideas, a few of the characters, a few of the vehicles, all those different things, and think about what your uses are. We know the meta is a certain set of things at this moment in time, but I think if you let that completely shape and dominate everything you think about in terms of looking at your army, I think you're missing out, especially at the start of an edition when there's lots of fun to be had outside of those 1 or 2 games where certain things aren't going to work in those ways, and hopefully in the long term fixes will mean those sorts of things aren't as much of a challenge anyway. So yeah, take it in that spirit, but if you've got feedback, you've got comments. Someone told me Lilith wasn't very good on a comment. You can go to hell, sir, whoever you were. Lilith is brilliant. Love Lilith, big fan, but she does have to get there, which is always a bit of an issue. So yeah, they've been loads of fun to make, and we'll keep them rolling, and hopefully you guys enjoy.
Yeah, man, come and listen to lightly bearded white blokes with quiffs talking about 40k.
Strong hair game.
We've all nailing that look to this.
Yeah, we've got a type.
They all need flannel shirts to finish the look, though.
Yeah, that's it.
Other content we have coming up. We haven't got to bat reps yet. We've got our first league games happening this week. We've made the draw, so we'll try and see if anyone wants to make a couple of reports out of that. And Ed and I will be looking to make some content to cover the results of week 1. But we also have in the pipeline a narrative campaign called In Rust and Shadow, which John, Lee, and I are currently organising. We're going to have Necrons, Flesh Tearers, and Chaos Demons set on an Awakening Tomb World. And we're going to use all the various different Crusade rules from the nice core rulebook that we just got in our Leviathan box and sort of repurpose that a little bit. It's going to be quite fun. We're going to have a bunch of characters. It's not going to be hyper optimal, but we're going to test out all the narrative stuff and get Crusade running. So I'm really excited to make that. It's going to be really funny. And the nice thing for John is that he's got all his Necrons already ready, and pivoting to this at the last minute isn't an admin disaster for him.
Bit of a Scorpexy boy.
Yeah, Scorpec Lord.
It'll be fine.
Amazing. It's going to be great. So that I think I'm probably more excited for that than anything else at the moment, because it's just gonna be. I just like having little starter armies on the table and running them into each other. I think it'd be nice.
Sounds
Great. Okay. And also, Chris has got some tips and tricks in the pipeline as well. Chris, are you?
Yeah, I think at this stage, let's face it, when they're kind of working out how to play the game, what sort of units they want to use. But as that settles down over the next month or two, the next thing is like, right, how can I start pushing myself as a player using the jank, really? And where the podcast will be focusing on those more general things. So like, as you can see from today's episode, obviously we're talking about the tactical cards, and each podcast episode will quite often have a part where we talk about something related to the game. But sometimes you just need to have a camera on a table and show the movement and the positioning and how you can try and avoid Overwatch, make the most of the piling and consolidating phase. Just make sure you're really talking through those sections and understanding the minutiae. So that'll be the goal as well. I mean, I'm a teacher, and in 2-3 weeks I'm on summer holidays for 6 weeks. So I expect a lot of content suddenly about to start firing its way out then.
Yeah,
definitely need that. Please start with combat, please.
Yeah. It's just it's that kind of unlearning, isn't it? We all need to do a bit of unlearning. So who else but Chris to unlearn us of some things, teach us some new things.
Not that many armies know what combat is at the moment.
No, I know it's a strange world. It's a promised land. It'd be lovely if we got there. But we could all try. Great. Okay. So, tactical scoring tactically. How do we do it? It may have reached your attention that one of the two ways you can play 40k match play at the moment is with drawn cards. This was something that was a very common feature in 8th edition when I started playing. In fact, that was the norm when I went to clubs. I would play the Maelstrom cards. Really enjoyed it. And then gradually stuff like ITC and more fixed stuff sort of took its place. And in 9th, that became basically the whole deal. There was a little brief reappearance of cards towards the end in whatever they called it. What was Tempest of War? Tempest of War was the next one. And that had a lot of the same flavour. I really enjoyed it, but it never really caught on in quite the same way. Whereas I think this time, because it's at the front of the game, it looks like it's going to be a big part of competitive play as well. And we've actually, I think, in the main, from the games we've played so far, we've all really enjoyed using them. It's been a good time. It's created interesting and slightly different shapes of games. So what we're going to do tonight is I've shuffled these. Promise, you can trust me. And we're going to draw them and talk through one at a time. Things you can bear in mind in order to sort of maximise your ability to score these cards across the game, and some of the challenges, the risks, the pitfalls, things you need to look out for, what sorts of tech you might want in your list to do it. Before we do that, I'm going to invite each of our commentators just to chat about how they feel about the tactical cards in general, having played with them or observed them, what the kind of think the positives are, maybe what the challenges or the negatives are more generally, and then we'll get into it. But first I want to shout out Elmo Lewis because he said I look fine. Yep.
So hot, baby.
I do.
He
Thank you very
glasses.
much. I appreciate it. And then Sam Anand also says, evening guys, practicing different painting techniques on some scratch-built orc terrain. Ooh, that is awesome. That is very exciting. Very, very nice. And also there is our captain wishing Lewis death.
It's a loving environment.
Yeah, exactly. It's good
so
to have.
Happy to be
that's the kind of energy that we want. So yeah, I mean, let's start with you, John. You observed presumably a whole bunch of people using tactical objectives on the weekend. What were your takeaways? What sort of ups and downs did you see with it?
So it was very interesting because I saw our friend Sean, who long-time Ultramarines player. He went with fixed, and that felt like a very natural fit for Space Marines because the list would do the two things really well. Would be kind of what you're engineering, but then there's no wiggle room that if those things are going wrong, that you fall apart. If you're not killing stuff and you've got a killing secondary, you're scuppered. And I don't quite personally like that as a system to play because you kind of go, I can do this fine on paper, and then you get to the table, start playing it, you go second, a couple of key units get shot off the table somehow, don't know how, but it happens, and then suddenly you've got nothing to kind of clap back with. Whilst I think what I enjoyed about Tempest of War in 9th edition was you've got to have some flexibility to your list. You've got to design around being able to be quite kind of reactive to things. Yeah. So I think once the initial kind of 10th edition bits get ironed out that we're kind of all finding a bit kind of awkward, That I feel will be a much more engaging way of playing the game, because you've got to be clever in not just your list building, but also how you approach playing the list, which I think would make a much more rewarding game. But in reality, I think a lot of people will go fixed just because they can just force it through, perhaps. And that's a shame, but
no, I mean,
more power to people.
It's valid,
right? If that's what they want, great. And it means that then theoretically we don't have this situation where people are having to play one style because the mission pack says you get to pick. So you could choose. Like, if you don't really want to play fixed, you don't really need to, and that's fine, right? And your list hopefully is engineered for it. So
yeah, certainly. I played against Sean, and he took fixed objectives, and he took one that involved doing actions in the middle. And I was like, great, I know where you're going to be, and I will meet you there in a minute.
Right?
And I think that's the downside, is your entire game plan is laid out. Yeah. And I love people whose entire game plan is laid out. That's great fun, because it's like, where shall I put the spanner? Where would you like it? Would you like it here? Here?
I used to pay CP to hide my second.
Yeah. Oh man, I love that crap. That was great. GSC had the same, like the secret secondary strat. I love that shit. It's great fun. So that's definitely a downside. But as you say, I think the consistency and the assurance, and I mean things like Bring It Down, right, in a meta where presumably you're going to see lots of vehicles and monsters. Yeah. It's not a bad pick by any stretch. There definitely is something in that. Speaking of Bring It Down and monsters, Davey, what's your take on it so far?
So I've never been the biggest fan of like Tempest of War. Okay. I think I don't like randomness. I like game plans. I like set agendas. I like, this is how I'm going to win this game. However, what I would say, if you are getting into 10th, if you are learning it, do this, because it will help you learn all the objectives for yourself and all the ins and outs, the little minutiae, things you wouldn't realize. Also, knowing them off by heart will help you when your opponent picks them against you, or when your opponent draws them randomly against you. You're going to be like, that's the one where you have to get one. You have to secure a new objective, and then if they say, oh, I'm going to go and secure your home objective, you go, well, actually, it's in no man's land, for example. So I think it's really great to learn. Sorry, I've got that rule wrong. I'm pretty sure I haven't. But anyway, it's really good to learn. In the games I've played, I've done all of it. I've done the tacticals. I've played 5 games. I've played 3 with tacticals and then 2 with fixed. I don't think it's necessarily easy to score fixed. Bring It Down, for example. Well, we'll talk about when we get to Bring It Down, but it's easier said than done with lower strength and higher toughness.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
You know,
I think the fixed ones is an interesting one, because I think we're going to see there'll be a GT pack at some point, and obviously may well be nudges and changes and adjustments to this. I think in general the consensus is that the fixed ones are a little undertuned as compared to the tactical ones, but if that's kind of the way around, I'd rather it be, because I think otherwise all you get is just fixed is just the done thing. And I think 9th was what I would term a schematic edition. I think a lot of armies were just built to turn up and do their thing, and to a large extent it didn't really matter whether the opponent was there or not. And that's not necessarily the most engaging or interesting or dynamic way to play the game. I totally get the thing with randomness, but I guess the point with these is that they're not random completely, because you know what's in there. You know the list of things you're going to be asked to do. There is optimal and less optimal times for them to turn up, sure. But as we will talk about today, there's a lot of things you can do to mitigate that and prepare for that, and have options in your locker to be prepared for those kinds of eventualities. Capitan, what do you think? Where do you fall on this?
So I would very much echo kind of what Davey said. When I played Maelstrom in kind of 8th, God, I hated it. It's just, you just felt so often that the games were decided based purely on the cards. So that was my main concern going in. And having played a couple of games now, I think it's a relief that the cards are generally scoreable. They generally, I think without counting, 3/4 of them are kind of, I would probably do that this turn anyway. So you're just scoring points for playing the game. I think it feels like at the moment, when you've got these ultra top armies, they're just blowing off the board and scoring points roughly at the same time. But I think the nature of these cards and being so many of them being quite easy to score means that games will stay close. And I think you could, unless you're tabled in 2 turns, I think for a lot of the time, as you lose your units, you can still be scoring, and that means you're still in that game. And I think you're absolutely right, Tom. You need that nature of fixed being slightly weaker.
Yeah.
Because you've got the randomness of the tactical, and the randomness of the tactical is what brings it down a peg or two.
Yeah, exactly.
So because like we played the other night and I drew capture enemy stronghold like straight away, and you're like, that seems quite unlikely. Whereas you're winning the game a bit comfortably in turns 4 and 5, and you're like, sweet, I've got that at the time.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I am actually a big fan of tactical. So far, I really did like secondaries back in 9th.
Yeah, me too.
But there were 3 of them. If I now only choose 2 things to do, it feels a bit like I'm just going to try and kill you, and that's not a particularly enjoyable aspect of the game. I don't generally, in the past, I've never really played armies apart from Advec, where my goal is to blow the table.
Completely.
And even when the armies can do that, I don't really play in that style. Like all the Eldar lists I'm building at the moment, they aren't based around tabling. I still want the stuff to go and score the missions and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I think, that's not my style to just blow people up. So actually,
completely.
Getting to play the cards is quite nice, as opposed to going, right, I'm just going to choose bring it down and assassinate and score my 40 points that way.
Yeah, because I think the cards incentivize, as we'll talk about, certain kinds of units that may not get a look in otherwise, and I think that was another thing I think Ninth actually did really well, was that utility units of certain kinds were staples, and that was a triumph over 8th, where you'd line up, here are all my tanks, here are all your tanks, I'm going to try and shoot your tanks before your tanks shoot my tanks, I shot your tanks, I'm really good at this game. So I like that. I like that layer of finesse to it, and as we'll talk about, there's stuff you can do and stuff you can think about with this to help you score. So yeah, we'll see. With the GT pack, I'm sure we'll adjust these, and I'm sure we'll get balanced adjustments to these over time. It'll be interesting to see if new ones appear, if faction-specific ones. Goodness, imagine something like that. That would be interesting. Don't know how good that would be. Could go one or two ways. Yeah,
it's one of the cool things. It's the balancing thing, right? Is that my opponents goes the same way I do, and there's something I quite like about that. Although I do miss some of the vibe of some of the other ones. I don't know. I think I prefer this now to what we had before.
Certainly for learning, I'm enjoying it. We'll have to see at events and stuff how it feels. I think we're coming off just being so used to doing things a certain way that we need a bit more time to work out where it sits, right, and how it all compares.
I can see frustrations where you're playing a really close game and you just don't draw the right cards.
Yeah.
And you lose the game because of the cards. They never blame dice, but there could easily be a situation where you just can blame the cards. And that feels bad.
Yeah,
like when you're choosing 3 secondaries, you've got to play to those secondaries. And that's on you as your tactics.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're just playing to drawing the cards in the wrong order, what are you going to do?
In the long term, I think that's going to put even more onus on frustrating people on the primary and winning the primary decisively, right? Because that's going to give you a bit of a margin for error with the cards. That's something that if someone's got advice for that, let me know. I'm still figuring that out. In a world seemingly without combat, primary denial is a slightly alien beast, and I'm still working out how to do it. But I think in the long run, that will be a big decisive factor. And some of these missions do have very interesting little niches in the primary that we'll get our heads around and talk about in a subsequent episode.
There's one other thing I wanted to just mention, right? And sorry to be a Debbie Downer, right?
Yeah.
One thing I did want to mention. So when you introduce cards to a game, you open up a new world.
Oh, no.
Unfortunately, cheating.
Yeah.
And as an ex-Magic the Gathering player, one of the biggest ways that
David Gaylord.
Yeah.
David
all these
Gaylord.
Davids, what they all do, they all play Magic, come over. And what people used to complain about, because when you would draw a random card at the top, they would scratch the cards or peel them up at the side so they knew what was coming next. Slaving, yeah.
Sleeve cards, guys.
Watch out for that. I'm calling it now. There will be a
high-profile scandal.
High-profile scandal of that. 10 a bet.
Yeah. Oh, we should have an in-house sweepstake on who it is.
Yeah. Luckily, only cool people will listen and watch this podcast, so they won't do it.
Yeah, no, you're all good, cool people, except Rob Kimpton, who is obviously a dirty cheat, and he says that tactical is great, keeps you on your toes. Yeah, I bet you do, you cheat, and thinking ahead and being reactive. No, I completely agree, and reactive, I think, is the big thing, and that's what we're going to talk about a lot today. These are only random in so much as you haven't anticipated the need to be able to do them. There are a couple where that's really, really hard, and we're not going to dispute that today. But you also do have your once per game chuck one completely away.
Yeah.
So there's always, and I think you need to be really sensible with that and think very sensibly about that. But anyway, without further ado, I've shuffled these, honest. And we're going to draw, and we're going to start talking through some thoughts. So, first one.
Cool.
Secure no man's land. At the end of your turn, if you control 2 or more objective markers in no man's land, this secondary mission is achieved, and you score 5 VP. If you only control 1, you get 2 instead of 5. Thoughts on this, gentlemen?
Play Warhammer, score points.
Yeah, very much so, right? This is not the end of the world. Grabbing a couple of objectives or grabbing 1 if something's very locked down. I think that's fairly reasonable.
Score across the turns as well.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter turn 1 or 5.
Completely.
Generally.
Actually, flipping objectives has become in a lot of ways easier because the whole mess around heroic intervention is a much less threatening thing now, right? It simply doesn't have the same dominance in the game right now. You do still have to get to things. Overwatch is a problem. These are things you have to navigate. But actually just towing a bunch of OC onto something and stopping it from being your opponent in a turn is much less fraught with risk in some ways than it used to be.
Apart from all of the Overwatch.
The Overwatch is the big issue.
Yeah.
The Overwatch
is an interesting one.
The heroic keys off of charges, right? So if you don't charge, you don't get heroic. So that's a big change. But the Overwatch is a big issue, and that's something I think you have to be bearing in mind with any of the ones that need you to go to places. At the moment, is you have to probably be like, well, I'm not everything I send is going to get there, so don't typically send one thing to do an important job. If there's 5 VP on the line for this, might as well get solidly onto a couple of points. Anticipate Overwatch, be ready for it.
I played Lee at the weekend, and I had to grab an objective on the right hand, or I had to steal one objective back, and he had a muted vortex beast within 12 with a flamer, and well, fortunately I had 2 units there, and it's about kind of like trying to bait out your opponent. I was like, which is the unit that I don't mind? Like the Harlequins, they can kind of like jump over there, and if you want it, if you want to try and Overwatch me, that's fine, and if you do, then cool, I've got a second unit which can go over there.
100%.
I think it's that kind of thinking ahead in that regard.
And building some degree of redundancy and sort of disposability into your list as well, right? This is something I've been looking at in my last couple of Drakari lists after playing a few games of them now. It's like, I'd rather have racks in 5-mans so I can just throw a 5-man. It's like, unless you Overwatch that's my point. If you kill it, great. Here comes the second 5-man. Boom, take the point. And if that's an expensive way to take a point, sure. But racks also give me pain tokens when they die, so it's like, I'm getting some stuff from this. It's not the end of the world. And so you need, as you say, you do need to be playing a bit of baiting and measuring with Overwatch as well.
Just to add to that, I would say that this is going to be in one of those secondaries, along with many other ones, which rewards fast-moving models.
You want to be able to get to places,
Speed's going to be really important.
And not flying speed, because flying's crap.
Yeah, flying not so good. So infantry that can come through walls, great. Stuff that can disembark from transports, great. Stuff that can advance in charge, great. All of these kinds of things. Shoot and move is massive for all of these, because shoot and
lone
move,
operatives.
We had a very fun one, didn't we, Chris? Chris had to take a middle objective, and I had put a bunch of grotesques with flamers on it, and I was like, "Come on, you little elf bitch, try and get on this objective. I dare you, I'll liquefy it." And Chris was like, "What I'll do is just stick a little head round, shoot, and then fire and fade onto it," and that worked very well, and that was very nicely played.
Can you not Overwatch a fire and fade?
No, 'cause it's in the
No,
different phase.
Nice.
Different phase. So movement outside the movement phase is absolutely massive for doing this. So anywhere you can find that. I mean, Termagants have that, right?
End of your opponent's
they move in response. Gargoyles have it, So little things like that are really nice for being able to just shove some extra OC on a point without getting hit heavily in the open.
So like end of your opponent's turn redeploys could be really useful for that as well. Then you're not moving them, right?
You'd have to come in. You'd be coming in your turn, but it's perhaps a nice way to line up something if there's an empty objective and you're trying to line up to get onto it. Absolutely, certainly GSC and demons can do that. Yeah, so if there's like a free objective on the side, that's very nice to be able to have things ready to do that as well. And that's actually a running thing with a few of these is that if you've got ways to recycle things into reserves and drop down, that's really nice because chances are there'll be something they need to do in the next turn somewhere, so it's useful. Cool. Next up.
Or Biovars.
Oh, guys, we've had a rough time.
No.
We've drawn capture enemy outpost.
Turn 1.
That is rough for round 1. Control one or more objective markers in your opponent's deployment zone. 8 VP. I can already tell you this is not going to be a popular card. This is going to be a card that is going to be in some stories. Okay, this is a card that's going to be in some stories because 8 VP is a big reward, but it's also going to happen in particular moments in the game. Let's face it. There's going to be particular times this works and other times that it doesn't. So what do we think about this?
You're telling me in a shooting meta, getting into your opponent's deployment zone on their on their actual objective is going to be difficult.
Yeah. So if we were trying to get there, what sorts of things might we need to be setting up to do it?
Warp spiders.
Warp spiders.
Go 24 inches.
Yeah, this whole show is going to be me and Chris going, lol, when you've got stuff that flies and shoots and jumps, it's fine. I don't know what you're all worrying about.
Warp spiders, guys. I don't see the problem there.
This is exactly why warp spiders are in Eldar lists. They can just yeet 24 inches and nab this. And it is, it's worth saying, I think people are still getting their heads around what they need to hold points. OC is not what it was. It's a different thing. So fast-moving stuff is perhaps better at nicking objectives in some ways than it used to be. My Scourge drew this in round 4 or 5, I think 5, against Paul today. Went 28 inches, nabbed his battlefield objective, which he had, in my defence, run off of to come and fight me with some other stuff somewhere else. So that's a little bit on Paul, but he'd run out of Terminators by that point. But so in the right moments, this is massive. I think one of the things. And a lot of armies are going to build this way. I think one way you can build for this is to have what I would call a substantial threat in reserves with rapid ingress in mind. I think that if you're looking at a big push unit or a big shooting unit, whether that's a big kill team or 10 aberrants or a bunch of death company or anything that can, say, jump, shoot, jump. If you are able to find a position on the board that's aggressively positioned but safe enough that you can rapid ingress in at the end of your opponent's turn, that unit is then much freer to move, attack, get onto a backfield point later in the game. Obviously linking it up with this specifically may be difficult, but I think that's going to be one of the most common ways we see people pressuring points and genuinely attacking the primary. And yeah, I think it's a really powerful strat, and I get a lot of comments and a lot of messages from people saying, well, how do you actually get things to combat, blah, 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 and Overwatch remains a massive issue with that. But I think you need to be trying your absolute best to exploit rapid ingress as a tool, regardless, because I think that's a really nice way of actually getting meaningful threats into the opponent. They've taken a lot of like deep strike charge deliveries away from stuff. You can't rely on that in quite the same way, but I think rapid ingress is really useful for this.
Yeah, I mean, this is one that you would even keep until the turn after, right? You'd be like, oh, I've drawn this.
You could.
It's 8 points. So I will figure out how to do this over 2 turns.
It is one that, taking 2 turns on it, actually 8 is as much as you're likely to score on 2 cards over that time, unless you have a nice run of it. So yeah, you can at least see how your turn goes, how good a position you're in for attacking that point, and then you could chuck it at the end of the round if you're not happy with it.
Yeah,
very nice.
Fast moving infantry.
Fast moving infantry. Boom. No prisoners. Kill stuff. Each time an enemy unit is destroyed, score 2 VP. Up to a maximum of 5.
Yeah.
And you score it even if stuff dies and gets back up. Or doesn't get back up, Chris?
Fuck you.
Chris was like, oh, I really like Fuegan. He's a really cool Phoenix Lord. He's got a melter gun and he gets back up when he dies. No, he doesn't.
So I played into Prom yesterday, and I took like a lot of Phoenix.
A lot of Phoenix Lords, an ungodly amount of Phoenix Lords.
Just to see what they were all like, really, and yeah.
I thought they were great. They were fun.
I still maintain Fuegan, I reckon, definitely does have players.
Oh, 100%. I totally agree.
Unfortunately, what Fuegan did was pathetically shoot his melter from over 9 inches away, and then when it's over 9 inches, he doesn't get his melter 6. So he did that twice. Then he moved up to the middle objective and was like, bring it on bitches, and then got
shot in the face by some
dart
lances,
and then didn't get up.
Yeah.
So that meanwhile, Karandras had been sat there bored for the whole game, nothing to do, and then decided to jog across an open battlefield, and also
failed his charge, and he got shot as well.
Which was not. And this is, I think, it's actually an interesting point. You know, like if we've been playing competitively, in a perfect world, in my mind, I'd be thinking, right, Tom hasn't drawn Assassinate or No Prisoners
100%.
yet, so there is no point in me just keep putting out these units here just for fun, because what happened was Karandras stood out in the open just so he could maybe charge something later, but he was nowhere near anything. Fragan was like, fuck it, I'll go stand in the middle, and then Tom drew No Prisoners, and that just gave him 4 points for free.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, exactly that. We weren't playing it that seriously. I think it's worth saying, you know, Chris was taking this in a very relaxed attitude, but that's exactly right. It's it's additional superfluous things. I have to think about this all the time with Drakari. It's kind of like, you know, you've got so many things that die, and you do towards the end of the game. I was playing a mission with the Kilmore earlier on today with Paul, and eventually you have to be like, right, I just need to get Kabalites out of the way. It doesn't really matter whether they do anything. I just need to hide them. Maybe I'll have a job for them later. At the moment, all they're going to do is potentially just give up kills in important places. And yeah, so you do need to be alive to that one. Some armies will be really hard to do No Prisoners into. It's just the way of it, right? Some armies are tough to break down entire units of. But I think this is one that in the midst of a battle, when stuff's vulnerable and weakened, again, you're just going to be playing Warhammer to score it, aren't you?
Absolutely. It's diminishing returns as well.
Yes.
So you kill 2, and then you only get 1 point for killing the last one.
Yeah. So I reckon a couple's... I'd probably only be trying to... Like, in most 40k turns, you know, a couple of targets is often about what I manage, you know. It does depend a bit on the game, but usually, typically, eliminating a couple of key threats in a turn is plenty, so... and it's one you can certainly use your own list to frustrate the opponent with, right? If you've got stuff that can move when attacked, Phantasm, lots of units have moved so many inches when they're being run after now. All those kinds of things can bait an opponent who's like, oh, I've got to go and kill 2 things. You're like, oh, you know, come get these things. Like, oh, they're gone. Bye. Those kind of tricks and tools become really useful because you can deny kills at crucial moments. So yeah, definitely think about those as well. Next up, deploy teleport Homer.
Oh, my fave.
I love this one. So you do a little action within 6 of the centre, or you do a little action within your opponent's deployment zone. It's 5 for the deployment zone, 3 for the centre. What do you think of this?
Use warp spiders.
Fast moving infantry.
Fast moving infantry, sure thing. Absolutely.
I think it's staging. I think there's going to be
staging is big for this. Yeah.
With combat not being such an issue, like if you stage, you're not staging to strike them next turn.
No.
And you almost aren't that worried about staging and being counter-charged. So you're staging to score your movement card.
100%.
So, like, when I used to play Harlequins, a big thing... the games I won comfortably were the ones where I was able to just keep cycling Starweavers or Skyweavers into the middle to the ruins risk-free. So that next turn they go for your behind enemy lines. And sure, we might not draw... the relevant cards, but you're playing the percentages, and there are quite a lot of cards which involve you getting to enemy's deployment zone or onto objectives, and by staging you're playing those percentages, aren't you? It's a bit like poker, right? You've got your cards and you're just playing the probabilities, and this is going to be that you're just playing the probabilities. In the general scheme of things, it's going to be quite important to start learning those cards well enough that you know what cards you've got to come.
That is 100% right.
And I think that will be quite an important skill. And again, the best players, they don't know what cards are coming unless they're cheating. They don't know what cards are coming, but they're playing statistical odds.
Exactly.
And they're saying, hey, there's a 60% chance now that one of these next 2 cards are going to involve me, or could be teleport homers.
Yeah.
And then you're like, right, well, I'm playing that odds because I want to get into a deployment zone.
A video we could definitely make would be to have the board laid out with the places in it that cards need you to be. I think that'd be quite an interesting one. Thinking about the centre, thinking about the back quarters, thinking about the deployment zones, the different demands placed on you. Because as you say, Chris, and this is something I've now been doing as well, that's what you actually have to stage for, because combat isn't as much of a part of the game. The objectives obviously matter, but there's other stuff going on around them, so you need to have things with adequate reach, positioned around. So again, whether it's a raider stash just behind that ruin, and it's about someone's going to have to go and stand in the middle and do a thing, or the raider can go and do it, doesn't matter either way. I think that kind of positioning with the secondary possibilities and outcomes in mind. But also the other nice thing is if you are covering those areas, you are making doing those things difficult for your opponent as well. Because if you're occupying those are places they're likely to draw cards where they need to be. So if you have things with Overwatch potential covering those areas too, that's where the counter game comes in. So let's say, I don't know, a D cannon with its nice 24-inch bubble just occupies, I don't know, half the board. That's a very nice way of frustrating opponent.
Does the job, doesn't it?
Does its job arguably better than anything else ever done.
Depends on the attacks you roll. If you roll 3 shots on Overwatch, then...
Yeah. If you get 3 shots on the Overwatch, but that is exactly the power of that unit. It's exactly why things were looking like they were going to be very, very crazy. Luckily, there's only 1 in a squad now, and they're still very, very good.
Could you imagine if you had 9 D cannons?
I can imagine that world wasn't far away.
If there's any way you can minus movement and stuff like that, I think is pretty strong. So it came into my head there is
that's smart,
Barb Gaunts or something like that. So
the nice thing does that as well.
Yeah, if they've not moved yet, you can shoot them with something like that. Imagine that face where they go, "Oh, I can score this easy," and you go Overwatch with Barb Gaunts, and they go, "Oh no, I've lost 2 movement."
Exactly that.
Or something like a whirlwind as well, because then you force them to take a battle shock test. Suddenly it all falls apart.
Yeah, absolutely. So anything that can force battle shock in their turn actually does frustrate this massively. Battle shock we're still working out how to make that impactful, I think, but it's
desperate for it to work.
I know.
You're desperate.
Paul's Dark Angels failed battle shock every turn all game. I was like, pain token, pain token, pain token, you little cowards. You remember when you couldn't fail these? Do you remember that?
He's making up for all the ones he didn't have to take.
Yeah, exactly that.
Oh gosh.
I think a general point on the battle shock thing is having those abilities to make people potentially take tests to then fail, to then not hold objectives, so you can steal the objectives.
That's really nice as well.
Like take like the Death Jester. A rule I've not actually remembered to use yet is that when the Death Jester kills a model, it forces a battle shock test. In some way, I never once used the fact that the Death Jester made 1 model die and count as 2 models for the
Morgan Ra does that as well.
Didn't use that for an entire year, but the Death Jester, he is causing that battle shock, and that could suddenly mean a unit which is flush over an objective have now failed. They're now OC0.
100%.
Toe in and score whatever card it is.
I fully expect them to build more mechanics in and around this as the edition evolves, and I think it has a lot of potential. I just think they need to be a little bolder with debuffing it and hurting it and making it more likely to fail. But getting that balance right, I think there's definitely potential for it to become a really interesting sort of mini game.
I think Paul's made a good point in our chat quite a few times that the problem is everything just dies before it needs to take a battle shot test. Like, how often are you shooting at something and I nearly killed it? It's just dead. So it's because you kill things so they can't do a thing anymore, right? I've played games where I'm like, right, how do I go into there or do I go into here? Well, I'll go into here because then this unit can't actually operate anymore, rather than softening targets up. I think so. That is one of the main reasons why we're not seeing battle shots.
Completely. And I think it's been more relevant in games where the lethality is a little less extreme, but obviously, as long as there are exaggerated builds that can kill a hell of a lot, it will have a limited. DreadMad93 says, I have a list for tomorrow, Tom. Bring it on, DreadMad93, who I guess is Ed. 19 units of 5 Warp Spiders, Way Leaper. Yeah, pretty good. It's a solid LR list. I think that's excellent. I look forward to playing it. Defend Stronghold. This is a nice little one, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
3 points for sitting on your home field objective. Tick. What's the tactic? Don't run out of your home field objective.
Yeah, but also don't be a lemon. Protect it adequately. Avoid creating a situation where you suddenly get done on this, because it can and will happen to people. Can't do it in the first battle round. But this is one where, again, it rewards you playing sensibly and carefully. Your backfield is not something the opponent should be just having easily or cheaply. Protect it.
Literally the opposite of capture enemy outpost.
Yeah, exactly that.
You know what I mean? It's like,
don't lose your head.
We're playing opposites. Cool.
Yeah, exactly
I think it's so, for example, played Tom yesterday and had a unit of Guardians, so I just stuck them out. I was like, I'll string them in my home field ruin just for a bit of deep strike denial. But then actually it's a matter of, well, make sure you've got your deep strike denial stops, but make sure you've got all of the OC on that objective.
Yeah, on the point, absolutely.
As much as you can. It's going to be a bit more. Just take that extra 5 seconds.
Yeah. That's the OC count on your objectives is massive, and you want to watch for that. You want to avoid like 5 OC worth of things being able to steal objectives from you.
When we were playing, because I had this Divenger blob in the middle, I kind of shifted them off in one direction, made sure one was tagging the objective. Well, that makes no fucking difference.
It's an old habit, right?
It's one OC on the objective. No. You need to have like 5, 6 on there. You need to know what your opponent's capable of moving to reach there and what their OC is, and make sure you've got enough on there. If that's your plan to hold that objective.
Absolutely. And so understanding how much vehicles have, how much flying and quick infantry have, all those sort of things is going to be huge. You need to know what those numbers are and be able to frustrate it. Next up, bring it down. Woo!
Classic.
Boom, boom.
2 points for a monster or vehicle kill. And 1 extra point, basically, for the more wounds that they have. And same thing, if you kill it and it comes back, you still get the VP. And I think,
an anti-tank in your list, guys.
Yeah, be able to kill monsters and vehicles. There's going to be a lot of them around. I
Big
do
max
think
points on this, right? Huge.
I do think you should be able to. I do think you should be able to just put this back in if they don't have monsters.
I was going to say, is there a thing? So
no,
if
there isn't, which is bullshit. There's nothing. So I think you should absolutely be able to discard that if they don't have any monsters or vehicles.
That feels like a GT pack sort of
I think if you're unable to fulfil the criteria at all, you should be able to discard it.
The old ITC did that, where if it's physically impossible for you to score it, they had no characters or no psychers, completely back in. So.
You were talking there, Davey. Sorry,
David.
No. I basically said it's a huge amount you can score on this. 8.
Again.
I think that represents just how. Because if you think of the other ones, a lot of them are 4s and 5s and 3s. But it just shows you how difficult it is to kill monsters and vehicles in this edition. And I think they've put a really good price tag on that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's a very valid one. This is obviously one of the ones that, as a fixed secondary, does feel logical into a lot of enemy lists. And I think, being able to build and have a big turn on this, very, very nice. I guess it's one of those ones where it's tricky. It almost makes you want to leave a couple of things limping around out there, and just like I'd rather get you just in case. But it's that I think generally in 40k, if they've got big things, those things are going to hurt you so badly that it's better to just start getting rid of them. But maybe one if you're feeling totally in control, in a way that no one ever really is.
Use your 40k. Fate dice to only do a few.
Use your fate dice. Yes, exactly. Would that you'd use your fate dice to only do a bit of damage to me, Chris? I'd love that.
Yeah.
I'd love it. I'm going to put a 5 dice here and kill you perfectly to the wound. Oh, and again. And again. And again.
You say this feels logical in a fixed secondary. Don't take that for granted. Hey, like I took this against Knights. I did not.
You took that against Knights, did you?
I
okay.
did not lack it at all.
How much do you think?
Guns in Miami.
How much do you think that was your fault?
Yeah. Well, I've learned the lesson.
Knights are tough to kill.
Do not die.
I'm not afraid to say it. Next up, assassination. I obviously didn't shuffle these that well. Because all the fixed ones are coming through now. So every time you kill a character, you get 4 VP. If you're using tactical, you get 5. And you get 5 if all characters have already been destroyed during the battle.
Ooh, did notice that one.
Precision is everywhere, isn't it?
Precision is extremely useful. Yeah. So if you can access snipers, hex rifles, rangers. I've heard sniper scouts are very good again. Vindicares, death jesters. There's a lot of them about. They're very cool. Illich Knight Spear, who's really good at getting killed by other characters. This is my favourite moment of our game yesterday. 10 witches and Lilith run across a board. Chris is like, is there any way you can avoid the Dire Avenger Overwatch? I'm like, no, there isn't really. I just kind of wish you wouldn't do it.
We tried to work on
there was just no way. There's just no way. It's just like a massive sprint across a gap.
You rolled the 6 on the advance.
I had it as much movement as I could possibly have. It wasn't enough. There's no way. And they got all of the witches died to Overwatch from the Dire Avengers. 10 witches dead. Lilith then flies into 10 rangers with Illich, kills all of them on her own. So good. So fun. Pretty much to the wound. It was beautiful. And and then she got killed by the Incarn.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, Assassinate. It's always been a secondary that gives your opponent a huge amount of agency. I think it still is. This is on my list of ones I would get rid of, I think. But it depends a little bit what you're playing against and on the game state. The rewards are there. It can be done.
I mean, very much matchup dependent, right? You've got armies like GSC, you've got armies like...
Oh, GSC, you will love this because their characters are there and they are ready to die. Yeah.
So But then against, for example, Tyranids, not many people are taking more than 2 max characters. So it's not going to be. It's going to be a difficult sell, especially when they're tough as well.
Completely. What I would say for this is develop ways to kill lone operatives, and you will thrive because people are going to use those. And let me tell you, not everyone is going to use those very well.
How do you get close to a lone operative, Tom? Would you use fast-moving infantry?
Fast-moving infantry.
Oh, right, okay, that's interesting.
Things that allow you to go up and come down in a turn. Yeah. Targeted smites. Anything that gives you the ability to reach a little bit further than your opponent was expecting and punk that little lone operative in the face. So that's going to be, I suspect that's going to be where a lot of the easy, low-hanging points for this are actually going to be. And there are going to be a lot of lone operatives out there. But if you want to go flying into your opponent's glory unit and see if you can do it in a one-er, be my guest. Absolutely go for it. Fill your boots. That's where the hero choices are. As I said, Paul's Terminator is going into my Court of the Archon, trying to kill all the way through it to an Archon. And I was there like, no, you will not do this. you will not do this.
I love that they've added that stipulation in. If all units from your all characters are already dead, you get the points. Because
that's nice.
That would be imagine you get that turn 5 and you've already killed everyone, and it's like, oh, what? And would that reward you for actually just killing stuff? So also, don't be afraid to kill characters early doors.
Yeah, just table your opponent, and you will still score a lot of these very well.
You get rewarded for killing characters in the way that...
Yeah. It's still good to good to be doing it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Next up,
Gauge Offerance.
Behind enemy lines.
Oh no!
It's the one before them.
Oh, behind enemy lines, 2 units in the enemy deployment. You get in tactical 5. And if it's 1, you get 3.
So what you want is...
Say the line, Davey.
I think what is good at this is fast-moving infantry.
Fast-moving infantry. Okay, sick. Okay. What else can be good for this?
Not aircraft.
Rapid ingress.
Rapid ingress is very good for this. Units that can deep strike in little tiny pockets. Inceptors, GSC units, anything that has ways to come in closer that can't be screened.
Things that can go up and come down.
Stuff that can go up and come down.
That's becoming your one.
I am a big fan. Well, I've been reading the Blood Angels rules, and if I am not going to spend the next 3 months trying to teleport stuff around with Librarian Dreadnoughts to see if it worked, I wouldn't be me. Because that's what it does now. On a 2-up, it just yeets something. And I'm like, what if I put a whole Blood Angels army behind a big wall at the back and just teleported bits of it out every turn?
Sounds very awkward to me.
It's funny. It just might work. It just might work. We will see. I'm well up for it. It's just whether do I stretch to getting 2 Libby Richards so I can be yeeting 2 out at a turn.
The question is when, Tom, not if.
Exactly that. For behind enemy lines as well, stage for it. This is I in my game against Paul, you always with the Raiders, you're always like, I need to get this into sort of jump friendly territory for if I score this. The other thing with this is one of those secondaries where you, like all positioning secondaries, you have to make a very real choice here, right? Can you afford to throw 2 units away at this moment in the game? Or is 3 points for 1 acceptable collateral? Because realistically, in a lot of games, what you send for behind enemy lines is going to die. And you have to be the judge of whether your assets are worth those couple of points. Because if it's going to cost you, let's say, an entire squad of infantry and an entire transport, that's often about 1/10 of your army. Do you want to lose 1/10 of your army for an extra couple of points? That's the question. You will learn over time what the trade-offs on that are, but it's definitely one to really think about that 1 versus 2 unit shenanigans. And also, if you have the Sanguinor, just get 1 unit into melee and then teleport him in, and then you'll get it with both.
Or the Incarn.
Or the Incarn. Can I just say, Chris was so nice to me with the Incarn, because Chris could have disemboweled me about 3 times with the Incarn, and he was very restrained and very good. It's still a nightmare, but it did have a massive whiff into some Talos as well.
I enjoyed the moment where she went, right, here are 2 Talos here, and with her 5 attacks rolled 3 ones. And then the thing was, like, the next turn you had 1 Talos left with,
and you did enough damage to kill both.
And she hit all the times, wounded all the times, and did like 25 damage.
Yeah.
So yeah,
she's swingy these days. Let's put it that way.
She's very swingy these days.
I still think she's phenomenal. I think the mission play you get out of her is wonderful, absolutely wonderful.
I think one of the interesting ones on this is defending it, right? So if you're going against someone who's trying to do it against you, you know, making sure that everything's screened, especially on things like Dawn of War.
Yeah.
Like super hard to screen that out. But I wouldn't want to necessarily bank on scoring this on corner deployment, for example.
No. So deep strike screening. Anything that can screen out reserves a little better. Anything that can overwatch and delete units that come within a certain range, super, super good.
Yeah.
Heroic intervention's a bit fiddlier now. So that used to be a really interesting way of screening these kinds of things out. You don't have that in quite the same way. But having a look at your opponent's units going into your turn and thinking, yeah, what can I make? How can I make sure there's not just an easy land here for them to do, right? I think that's all definitely valid and useful.
Yeah, cheap chaff. Like, so I watched that guy's orc video, which I will find and put in the chat. And you know, he's obviously got quite a lot of bodies being orcs, not as many as he used to have, but probably. But having Gretchen just doing stuff on objectives, screening out big time is really nice.
And you can make them go very quick as well by putting Zogrot with them.
Yeah, completely. And that's something where lists that just casually, nonchalantly just fill up the space are extremely powerful. Chris's list yesterday was beautiful for this. Like, it was a fun list, it had lots of Phoenix Lords and stuff in, but actually one of the beautiful things it did was it's just like this whole slant of the board, it's just going to have stuff in it. It's just going to be stuff in it, and if you come too close, you're going to die. And that's extremely powerful, right? It makes the opponent's scoring really difficult. It makes it really costly. It means every time you go out there to do things, you're bleeding resources. So you want to be building your half of the board into a fortress in exactly that way, and making it a really dangerous place for your opponent to be in, and a costly place for your opponent to go to. Excellent. So overwhelming force. This is cool. Kill stuff on objectives. 3 points for each, maximum of 5. Play Warhammer.
Mission dependent, what your opponent's done dependent.
Yeah.
Hope that you score it at the right time. You can't plan for it particularly.
No.
It's just sometimes it'll be a good card and sometimes it'll be a crap card.
Yeah. In the heat of the battle, this is great. Other times it'll be a bit tricky. If you score it right at the start of the game, you're going to struggle. But it's a generally straightforward one. Next up. Extend battle lines.
Hold your own in no man's land.
Hold your own and hold 1 in no man's land. This is very nice. This is low hanging fruit, guys. This is something you just should be able to do.
This is like the old Harlequins one where I can't remember what the secondary was. Where you picked
take your places, or no, deadly performance.
Deadly performance. Yeah, 2 or 4 things, and one of them was take an objective that your opponent has.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I guess I will do that anyway.
Do you think when they wrote the Harlequin secondaries, they were just starting to write these?
Yeah, it could be. There's a similar.
It would explain a lot. So that's a very straightforward one. Again, you have to be ready to go and get objectives. You have to be holding your own. There's a running theme here that losing your own one is bad. Don't do it. Taking your opponent's is good. Do it. All in the balance of the game. Next up, engage on all fronts. Get into table quarters, more than 3 away from the edges, and you get 4 for units in all 4 quarters. You get 2 for units in 3 different table quarters. If you're battle shocked, it does not count. So
you're generally always going to score the 2 unless you get smashed. It's as kind of relevant to your behind enemy line point is, do you want to throw away a unit into that final
exactly that
or 2 points?
Yeah, and that'll be where you have to make the call. I think a lot of armies typically want to pressure one side and hold down their own ground. It's very natural to be in 3 quarters. That 4th will typically require sacrifice. It's very rare that there's not 1/4 of the board that your opponent is at least able to vaguely hurt you if you go into it. If they can't, it's over, right? You're rolling through to Berlin at that point. There are no remaining enemies to slow you down.
I think again, this one and the last one again with fast-moving infantry. Like if you have the units to get across the lines, and have them ready in positions ready for this one coming, because this is easy to score 3.
Yep.
It's more difficult to score is it 4 or 5? 4.
It's you get an extra VP,
5.
so it is 5 if you do all 4. And 3 if you do
can do all 4.
Tactical,
there is money there. There is money.
Yeah. So it's another one I think you want to be building to do, but again you'll have to make that call on how much you want to sacrifice. What are you willing to sacrifice? This one's great fun. Here we go. Area denial. This little bastard.
Yeah, this is good.
So you've got a little 6-inch bubble. This will be on our map when we do this video for you. 6-inch bubble. No enemy units wholly within 6 of it. No enemy units within 3, and that's not wholly within. So you want to clear them out of within 3 of the centre. You want to clear them out of wholly within 6 of the centre. And you need to have something in there as well.
Yeah.
So this is an interesting one, isn't it? What do we think of this?
Some armies want to be in the middle, some don't.
Some really don't, yeah.
I played this into Lee, and I had to do it, and I had to go throw a Viper off into the middle. So, and some armies really don't want to. It's like you're throwing away something in the middle, which is going to die, rather than your opponent's deployment zone. But you also have to have the firepower to still be able to take out whatever's in the middle, I guess.
Yeah, completely. This, if you get drawn into a proper tit-for-tat trading game, this one's often quite easy because people are not giving that much to the centre, but some armies will have just taken it and have put you under the cosh. Then these kind of ones become very difficult, and it's Death Guard. There are 20 Terminators in the middle. That's when you go, this isn't going to happen today, and that's okay. That is all right. And so again, you need to weigh that up. It's much easier to get that clearing them out of the smaller circle. So there are still some points you can have, but often there's something peripheral on the edges. So yeah, it's not too bad, but there's going to be games where this just is a non-starter, and there'll be some where it's pretty easy, I think. A tempting target. Your opponent picks an objective, and you go and get it. You get 5.
You know what your opponent hates when you pull if you pull this? But you know what they absolutely don't want you to have? Fast moving infantry. Take things that are fast. Sorry.
No, you're right. You're completely right. Yeah, it's really good. I think we're gonna have that meme guy, and it's just like fast moving infantry. That's gonna be you on Meme Monday this week, I think.
We had David's triangles.
Triangles. Now it's fast moving infantry. Davy's School of Fast Moving Infantry. Yeah, 100%. This is quite a fun one. I think
it's a satisfying one, isn't it?
It's a satisfying one.
You're taking them off primary as well.
Yeah, because this is the thing. I think the way you should think about this is, in the primary now, with a lot of the way these missions are set up, you are going to have to mess with a point your opponent is pretty content to hold and is battling to hold. You really are. So being able to look at the board and go, if I had to, I could actually take the one they would choose to make me take. I've got that in me to actually go and get and hit something that that they're confident that they can lock down. The fact it's in no man's land means that your opponent on a lot of these boards is going to be relatively within reach of you. So yeah, it's an interesting one. I think it does give your opponent some agency. This is maybe one where if you are going for it, you probably need to commit quite a bit and actually make a real go at it to make it happen. But you can think of it as useful in that sense.
One of the things I like doing with this one, because it's one of the ones I pulled early doors, so it was kind of in my head when I was taking my first couple of turns. And you do this anyway because Overwatch is really important in this edition so far. And if you can get your flamers anything that's reliable at Overwatch and point them at no man's land objectives,
bingo.
It's really good. It's a really good way to say you can try. And obviously it's all random, but it's really making them suffer for those points.
100%.
Rather than hide your flamers, make sure you can just get an angle.
Next up, cleanse. Do a little action on an objective that you hold, and this starts in the shooting phase. And the fun thing about this, you get a few points for each action. I think up to 2 or more objectives cleansed, you get 5 VP in tactical, 3 for 1. And the relevant thing with this that's important in the fine print is that you can start attempting this action with a unit as you select it to shoot in the shooting phase. It completes at the end of your turn, and you need to control the objective. So you don't need to control the objective when you start doing this, but you do need to control it by the time it completes. So you can go on to a point that's held by the enemy with something and say the action is starting, and then it's on your army to clean it, make sure it's cleared off by the time the action completes. You are not forbidden from starting the action in that sense. So it's going to come in conjunction with a plan, right? You're like, all right, I'm going to push you off this point this turn, but here's my little stupid rat unit. They're going to start looking around for useful tidbits on the ground, whatever it is they want to do. And again, there's going to be a bit of a mini game with the opponent. They'll be trying to stop you in different ways, but you can have multiple units. You can have redundancy to do this as well. I think this one scores pretty well.
I think this is probably time, because some people might not realise this, to mention that obviously we don't have actions as a thing anymore, but a lot of the cards put a whole paragraph to say do an action.
Yeah.
And a lot of these things is a unit that's eligible to shoot. Basically, so you read that as, that means I have a gun, right? But actually, units that can advance and or have assault, so can advance and shoot, that means they're eligible to shoot and do these actions.
And pistols. So
or pistol in combat.
Yeah. So things like warp spiders, for example.
Yeah, fast moving infantry.
For now, we'll see how long that sticks. Maybe they'll learn what an action is again at some point. But yeah, I agree. As currently written, there's a lot of flexibility and freedom in this.
Absolutely, just go and advance your stuff, and then you're still eligible to shoot. So go do your action and shoot as well.
Completely.
Here's a question then: which one do you prefer, this or deploy teleport homers?
Ooh, I mean, you need to stage up utility stuff that can do this towards the middle of the board for both, is how I would say, because chances are one of them's coming up at some stage. I like them both, and you just need a couple of units that you don't mind having
dead,
not
traded.
One dead, one doing a job. Transports can do these. That's worth saying. It's not like infantry locked or anything else. Like a Venom can run out and do this.
Monsters.
A monster that can survive Overwatch can just waddle forward. Your auntie could do this. Yeah. Your auntie, don't know how many.
Fast moving infantry, then she's really.
Oh, she's absolutely fast moving infantry. Yeah.
Also, definitely fast. This one, another good one, fast moving infantry. I know what the next one is. Investigate signals.
It is investigate signals. Well, congratulations on your fucking coin flip. Well done. Well done. If that's not a 10th edition outcome, I don't know what it is. Right, so in your shooting phase, you can select one or more units from your army that are not battle shocked and are eligible to shoot. Till the end of your turn, the units you selected are not eligible to shoot or declare a charge. You are scanning. You are scanning in each corner of the battlefield. You've got to be wholly within 9 of the 4 corners. This is a slightly new setup. We've not really seen this before.
Corners. Like, what corners?
Corners. This is why we're going to draw this for our video. So we had to map it out, didn't we? And it's a new little box. It's not that big. It's not that big. And you can do a scan. And for each one you do, you get 2 VP. And there's no cap on this. So you could get 8 if you're in all 4 quarters. You could get 6 if you're in 3. So, what do we think about this? John, what do you reckon?
It feels like a job for something you can drop in that's got a small footprint, like, say, a lone operative.
Yeah.
If they've left a gap that's, say, 12.1 inches away from their model, you drop him down and go, I'll do this and score some points.
Yep. So any little teleporting, deep-striking dudes that like to pop up in places would be good for this, wouldn't they?
When Lee and I played it, it was like halfway through the game. And it was like, what? This is Lee drew it. I can't get to the corners. Or once you realise, actually, if you score it early, it's quite often or you get the card early, it's quite often a guaranteed 4.
Yeah.
Just it's 2 points in each of the 2.
Your deployment's corners almost,
If you look at that other one, which is like diagonal deployments,
you can be on 3.
You can potentially get 3. You've got to have fast-moving infantry.
It's a very reliable 4 if you leave things in your corners to do that. For decay players, why do we leave things in our corners? To stop our opponent coming in the corner and ruining and ending our lives. So you should already be doing this. You already need to have stuff in those bits of the board, because otherwise enemy stuff is going to land in those bits of the board. So a 4 for this is just polite practice. right? And then it's whether you want to be ambitious and try and have redundancy in the list to go and nab a third one, a fourth one. That's going to depend on the game. I'm going to teleport stuff for the Librarian Dreadnought because I'm an idiot. But you've got options. You've absolutely got options.
Grey Knights love this.
Yeah.
I think what people are going to get used to is pre-measuring their deployments.
Yeah.
And being like, okay, I can get this if I draw this card, and I can also get there if I draw this card, and it's going to come to you naturally in your deployment, which is going to be really interesting and really actually quite cool for bringing, the level of play up. I think
100%. I think that's it. All of these interrelate with basic positioning logics on the board. That's what's quite interesting about them. They're all places that it makes sense to be in doing things anyway. And then there's the cost trade-off interaction of your opponent killing your stuff as you try and do the different things. But I think most of these you will find yourselves in the relevant places to do them and with the relevant assets to do them if you are just trying to play the game in an effective and sensible way. That's the reassuring thing about them.
And a good time to battle shock someone is when they draw this card. So, like, if you can,
that's when you go army-wide battle shot, right?
If you can do something like that, or if you can somehow do it,
hit those corner units. Yeah, that's spot on. That is spot on.
Because you might just deny 2 points. And
that's it. Trim those points off. Final one. Storm hostile objective. Storm a hostile objective, guys. It's really... You're going to have to do that sometime. You've got to take an opponent your opponent did not control.
An objective your opponent did not control.
No, take an objective that your opponent did control. You've got to take one from them.
That's quite a lot easier.
Did I say the opposite? My bad.
You said take an opponent your opponent control.
We've done a lot of cards right now.
That's
a lot of cards.
It's absolutely reasonable.
If they don't control any, you still get it. Don't worry.
You've tabled them, so well done you. Hope you feel big.
I've never been disappointed to pull this card. I feel like it's always something, especially you can achieve
it's part
it.
Of it.
It's playing the game, right?
Okay.
It is very much playing the game. Very much playing the game. Cool.
Nice. So
That's the set.
We've scored 100. Nice.
Oh, definitely. I think we scored more than that. Absolutely. Very good job, everybody. Go and have fun with these. I like them. I really like them. I'm enjoying it a lot. It's a fun part of the experience, fun part of the game. And we'll be thinking about the primary a bit more as we get more experience, but I didn't want to just dive in with that because I feel like we've still got a lot to learn in a world where it's much harder to get at the opponent.
We've hardly played any games, right? So
no, exactly.
Tom, you've not played anything, and you've come back and you're just whoring yourself out to literally anyone you can at the moment.
That's correct, as is my way.
Yeah, we're all kind of we're still all in the early stages. We're all learning, and as we learn, we'll be able to share the stuff.
Yeah, this is going to be practice makes perfect, right? Spotting all those opportunities to do actions with pistols and monsters and vehicles, and that's not going to come first time. So don't get frustrated with yourself if you don't realize you're like, oh shit, I could have won. Nah, I'm rubbish.
Yeah.
It's not. It's practice.
Yeah.
And I reckon I'm looking forward to that first time in the next month or two I draw into some top end player at an event, and then they do a bunch of stuff, and you're like, that would be cool.
That will be coming. That will be coming soon. We'll see the never-ending genius of the top set as they put their 3 big knights on the table and go, "You're dead."
You're dead, pal.
And they'll go first, as they always do.
Absolutely. Brilliant. All right. Well, we're going to rattle through some listener questions, and then we're going to go to bed.
Oh yeah, cool.
So, podcast questions. Oh, excellent.
Interestingly, my list only has 1 unit of fast-moving infantry.
Oh, yeah.
I've got 1 unit of leapers.
But is that because you're going with a different skew instead?
Yeah, maybe. Maybe I like my toughness 10 and above boys. We'll see.
Yeah.
I think some of these would have been fielded last week.
Let me have a look.
Yeah, there's a few from the day of the 20th. One from the day of the 20th, that would have been fielded last week, I would guess. But then we've got Ultimate Funk, who asks, how many characters are people including in their lists? I'm finding it very hard not to go about 25% of my list on them, which feels way too much.
Nah, man, army dependent, hey.
It's super army dependent is the answer.
My recommendation would be do a SWOT analysis of what your army's good at. Sorry to sound like someone else, but it's true. Right? It's true.
Oh, I'm excited
It's
for your
so
impression of him on this podcast. That's gonna be sick.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That'll be the day we go to war.
I kind of want to do it now.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
But yeah, I mean, just look at what your army's good at. One of the weaknesses of Tyranids, for example, is characters. So right. We've got one character that's really good, maybe 1.5. So but our strengths lie in other areas. So it's all about investing in those areas and making sure that you're playing to your faction's strengths, not just doing things for arbitrary reasons. You don't need X%. You just do what's best.
Yeah, completely.
I was doing the World Eaters one. I think every unit of World Eaters could have a character leading it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The same with Necrons, but then sometimes you look at it and go, do I need to spend those points to make that unit that much better, or can I cope without it as well? It's that kind of, sometimes you don't need to make the ultimate unit. Sometimes just good is enough.
Yeah. It's working out what your expectations are for a unit and what it needs to make it really go up a level, doesn't it? And also it does depend a bit on the price of the character. Like some characters are dirt cheap. Apothecary, 55 points. Very nice.
Love it.
Very nice.
Take 3.
Is that the biologist or the apothecary?
No, the normal apothecary.
Well, they both are. They're both 55.
55 points.
The biologist is 85, but
Yeah.
he's very different how he plays. So
Yeah. So there's certain characters where you look at it and you can see the value. You can very much see the value in it. And bearing in mind they're adding to a squad now, right? I think there's a lot you can do. And lone operatives, as we've discussed already, are really valuable, super valuable tool to have. So if you've got a way to squeeze 1 or 2 of those in, I think it's really useful because being able to at least say your opponent has to come out and deal with something if they want to go and hold a bit of the board, I think that's a really useful thing to have.
I suppose as well, you're at least building around characters and what characters you have. Starts with what secondaries am I taking, and am I doing tactical, am I not? If you are doing tactical, you need the flexibility. If you're not, and you're doing fixed, and you want to build around something, build around it and make sure you've got the characters to score them.
Yeah. Ultimate Funk was also a bit worried and embarrassed that they seem to be asking a lot of the questions in our chat, and I just want to say, Ultimate Funk, you're brilliant. Please keep asking questions. We love them. Never worry about that. As I say to my students, there are no stupid questions.
No, I work in primary school.
At my level, the stupid thing is always not asking when you should and then just not dealing with it. Right, and then we go... What was next? Just Make Stuff asks, are people going to be taking fixed secondaries much in the new world?
Yeah.
I think people will. And I suspect that GT packs will change it to some extent as well.
Again, army dependent, right? So
different people will like different things, and we'll see in the long run. As 40k always leans towards a solved place. Ain't nothing more solved than a fixed secondary. So we will see. We like to all do the same thing as each other, and I have faith that our desire to all do the same thing as each other will eventually win out.
I think that'll be the most things that get nerfed, right? So
yeah.
Units will get nerfed because they achieve fixed secondaries too easily, i.e. biovores.
Yeah. And we've got Jack Davis Fletcher who's in here trying to start a fight.
Here he is.
He asks, if you was going to an 8-man teams event this weekend, who makes your top 8?
See, I read this as factions, not people, and then I doubled it.
Oh, I prefer the version where it's who's our best 8 players. Okay, no, that's fine. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Let's do the top 8 factions, and then maybe we'll do our top 8 players later.
Brilliant.
Not on camera.
Yeah, exactly.
Fine, don't worry, Tom. Half the team don't watch anyway. Just say the ones that don't watch.
Yeah. So, top 8 factions. Eldari. Knights.
Imperial Knights.
Space Marines. And then probably... I mean, has Chaos Knights done anything yet?
No, but I don't
Towering feels like...
They do a similar sort of thing. Necrons
Chaos Knights, Necrons, I think. Yeah. And then...
is CSM good? Are they good? Demons.
No.
Thousand Suns.
Thousand Suns are reputedly very good.
Yeah.
I think GSC are very good.
Yeah. Custodes, they're very good.
Custodes, that's probably
your 8.
That's probably the 8 I'd take. Yeah. Because that's a lot of towering.
No Tyranids there, Davey. How do you feel?
I feel like I can't wait to make all you miserable with my biovores.
That's the spirit. I have not yet played Tyranids, so I don't know how that works.
No, it's to be honest, they're really fun.
Are they fun? You enjoyed it?
I enjoyed it.
That's good. That's good.
And as
we
well,
like
there's
that.
loads of flex, right? So I'm going to try and win this with the shooting list coming this weekend, but then I'm going to go for I'm going to try an orc pressure build-ish style. Yeah, it's going to be cool. It's a good time. It's a good time.
Yeah, 100%.
Jack says that CSM are good. Well, I'm playing CSM this weekend because my first round of the league with my Eldar is Lee's CSM.
There you are. CSM, yeah, I think people will be extremely surprised at what CSM are currently doing.
Literally nothing about them, so I'm just going to walk straight.
That's all right. What you know about them from 9th is not going to prepare you for what CSM players are currently on, because it is a weird new land they've gone to.
Okay.
I sold a Harken World Claimer this week. If you want any kind of idea of how weird
you just made Lee Jones.
Fucking yes! My converted Night Lord's Harken World Claimer will be coming out. Let's do it. Exploding 5s is horrifying. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right, Jack.
Shooting, if you don't
it's shooting. It's shooting. Fine. They don't come to combat any more than anyone else does these days.
They shoot.
No, they've gone to a gunny place.
Okay.
They've gone to a gunny place. I don't want to spoil it for you. I'll let you find out from Lee. Okay. Jack Asher, the wonderful Jack Asher, my buddy, asks which unit from the army you play saw the biggest glow up in between the end of the 9th E and 10th E indexes. Most improved Wraith Knight for the Eldari.
Yeah.
Scrivo, how about you?
The Lion.
The Lion, he did get a glow up. He got a hell of a glow up. Davey, for you?
Exocrine, I guess. I can't think off the top of my head. I really can't think off the top of my head, but probably an Exocrine, not a Harrispex.
Nice. The boring answer is Cabalites. The exciting answer is Scourge. I think Cabalites, in terms of their general all-round utility, are just crazy now. I was sticking objectives all over the place. Very, very funny. In a very Drakari way when you think about it. And next up, we have Bloodrender. Is there a combination of Leviathan mission primary / deployment zone / twists that makes you more excited to play that generated mission over the standard types we had in the 9th GT packs? Oh, interesting. As in, is there a particular combination? I mean, I don't have enough experience yet.
No.
I like that we have that sort of interaction of 3 different things. And I need to play in person a bit more so that I will stop being like, oh, it's TTS, so it doesn't matter, let's just do one we can easily do on TTS. I'd like to play a few of the ones that are actually a bit interactive and weird.
This when you've not done them before, it's kind of like,
it's a bit scary, especially when you're on a computer moving stuff around.
Yeah.
I think it's cool. I think it'll be fun watching TOs work out what kind of spanners they can throw in the works. With
Mikey was saying for his Hellstorm, he put Mission 5 as the Servo Skulls one, where players are having to move objectives, and the closer they get to your opponent's deployment zone or something, the more like points they're worth. It's just like all these players are on, they're exhausted,
they're knackered,
really long rounds trying to learn the rules, and they're like, where do I move this objective?
I can see a lot of them starting with the special ability, that special kind of mission rule for the first round, just to warm people up a little bit, perhaps.
Yeah, absolutely. Sias, what changes or variations do you think we are likely to see for terrain rules at tournaments?
Windows line of sight blocking. No windows on the bottom floor.
Yeah, no windows on the bottom floor is a must. Need somewhere for your warp spiders to jump out of.
But also, you don't want really high terrain.
You don't.
No.
Fly gets completely fucked by it. Those little baby UKTC boxes become quite nice.
Because Fly actually does something, and they're all infinitely high anyway.
Yeah.
As long as you're stood behind it. So.
I think we probably lean a little bit closer towards what GW terrain is, right? So we have bigger pieces, because they're going to be what people can fit an entire base in. And also, it kind of makes tanks less good if they can't squeeze past all these giant pieces. Yeah. So that'll be the way, maybe, that we end up including more less tanks.
It might be time, given that melee is less effective, it might be time for bigger pieces to move more centrally again. Because the main reason that wasn't the case was that it was too easy to put an entire Blood Angels or Drakari army in it and then smack your opponent's face in, which doesn't feel as effective now. So it might be that you can have larger staging pieces in the middle of the board without it being a guaranteed combat meta.
Yeah.
The Barcelona GT has got 2 bits of WTC terrain, the big bits, in the middle of the board, as well as having 2 in your deployment.
Look at me predicting the future. You're welcome.
Yeah.
Like the old game mat style pack feels like how I feel a lot of people want to play initially. Those big solid walls, at least.
Yeah. And I think we'll have to see with the towing on, towing off, what can shoot what stuff. We'll see whether that changes at all. People obviously find that a bit weird. I've not found it that weird to play yet. It's not been particularly bad, but bigger bases for terrain so stuff can be wholly in it properly. Does seem to make sense now, rather than the little UKTC style lips. Or if you're Battlefield Birmingham, you just fill the entire board with terrain.
Yeah. If you haven't got one large piece, just make a large piece out of several bits.
Because currently we've got like stuff under 4 inches you can just go over with Titanic stuff, right? So maybe something that's the other end of the scale, where if it's over 6 inches, it's indefinitely tall. So you don't have to physically have it that tall, but something to kind of help mitigate for the purposes of line of sight, perhaps.
Yeah.
Just these sorts of things. There's some simple things that can change things, I think, quite drastically.
Completely. This is the fun one. Jack Asher asks, should we just ban Eldar and get it over with? No.
Fuck you, Jack.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. We've got our very first weekend of data, and we can see there are at least 4 armies that are across the Games Workshop win rate threshold, and they're all maps to ones that we've already been told anecdotally are a problem. So if you ban Eldar, you just say those other 3 can do what they like. That's exactly how this always works, right? You cut the top one off, another one takes its place. We know Eldar needs adjusting in various different ways. They will get that. They will absolutely get that, and banning them isn't going to be needed to get that, right? It's patently obvious what the issues are. And you're just saying, shall we just have a different top army? And as frustrating as Eldar are to play into, and I do find it frustrating, and I play them, I find them frustrating at the moment. There's plenty of other stuff out there right now that is frustrating in all sorts of its own ways, and I think it reflects issues with the overall edition that needs adjusting rather than the Eldar specifically. That's what I would say on this.
So Jack's got a good idea in chat. He says ban the other top armies too.
Ban all of them. Yeah, just ban all of them. Yeah.
Just ban tournaments.
Just ban
until they figure out.
Ban it all the way down to Death Guard, and just
they'll still complain.
Just let Death Guard play all on their own. They should host Death Guard only tournaments and advertise them on Reddit. Can you imagine that? That'd be sick. I'd love that.
We could run it.
Should we run the world's first Death Guard and AdMech tournament?
Yes, Keenan, like that.
Yes, let's do it. That'd be great. I can bring my Death Guard, you can bring your AdMech. There you go. That's 2 of the attendees sorted. Stuart, come.
Do it on TTS, right?
Oh, dear.
Oh, no, this is becoming a real idea. Stop. Eject.
But yeah, I think the phenomenon with banning is, and we've seen this, like the attention different armies get is not proportionate. This is mob rule. This is pressure from popularity or unpopularity. We've definitely seen that, right? When the Marines rules came out with the indexes, they were very scary, and literally no one I knew was bothered. There was no one concerned because they all play Marines. They don't give a shit. They were just excited about their scary new rules, and those kind of disproportionate representations and experiences different armies get. It's the same reason Votan got slapped down, because no one owned it, so it didn't matter. It was easy to go for it because no one played Votan yet, so it was easy for the whole community to go, fuck them. And that's not a logical, sensible way to run things, I don't think. There's going to be some busted stuff, but we know that addressing the problems, things that make them busted, i.e. artillery, towering, interaction with dev wounds, if you get to the root of those, the armies themselves cease to be as much of an issue. And you need to see those things operating to understand what's wrong with them.
Yeah. Cause, not symptoms.
Yeah. We're in a beta test, aren't we, at the moment? So we need we're getting the data, and we'll know soon how effectively they're going to address that. 10th edition, hotness or hot mess?
Well, it's certainly not hotness.
No. It's a work in progress, isn't it? It's a fixer-upper. That's where we're at.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's not where 9th was, right? 9th was really cool, and everyone was kind of enjoying it. If they kept innovating with it, I think it could have carried on. But this is cool. There's loads of positives to take from this.
Definitely.
I played someone who usually takes me 4 hours to play last night, and it took me 2 hours to play. And I was like, this is good.
There you go.
Positive.
Yeah. I completely agree with Keenan that the bones are good, just need a bit of balance. Yeah, I agree. I've seen plenty to think there's lots of fun mechanics in it. Again, I'm really in love with stuff like rapid ingress, dropping stuff in your opponent's turn. Some of those counterplays are amazing, and when the fine-tuning of the balance between these different parts is better, I think there's a really interesting and dynamic game there. We know what we miss, we know what we're not enjoying, but it's quite reassuring to see how universal that feeling is, I think, across players. That means that changes and adjustments to it are almost inevitable. This isn't one of those areas we're not arguing over it. You're not having long WhatsApp debates about it. This isn't getting rid of falchions. This isn't a 50-50 issue.
To me, it just feels like that they have come up with a new edition, started from scratch, and then forgot a lot of the key learning from the last two editions, like capping mortal wounds. Certain little clarifications that had been putting in throughout the edition kind of got missed
completely.
And so as soon as you get those dropped in, it's a completely different beast then, and it's just rounded out. So I don't think it takes much. And that's just that's where I've got a little bit of disappointment, is that they've missed those bits. But
I think the cohesion and the agreement on those issues is much greater now than it's ever been, and that's reassuring. And I think that's the thing. But having played 3 games of it, it's fun. It's still a fun, engaging game. There's a lot going on, and part of this is just adapting to change, and trying to be positive and find the fun in it. As a competitive game, it's going to take time to straighten out, but you can play it in a whole bunch of other ways if you want to. So yeah. And then finally, Fears says, ban Eldar and Space Marines. And then, not really a question.
Sean's dropped you a question in the chat, Tom.
Oh, yeah?
He says, how are you guys feeling about heroic intervention?
I'm a bit gobsmacked that you can only do it into a charging thing.
Yeah.
That's a bit nuts.
It feels a shame.
But you can do it if something has charged.
If something has charged,
right?
Yeah.
So you can do it wherever.
And if the game hadn't just put everyone off charging for the rest of their lives... that would it's okay. I think actually, again, when it's fine tuned, I don't think it should be limited to if something's charged. I think you should just be able to do it. I like that you can bop it on anything now rather than just a character. I think that's fun. But at the moment, combat control armies of all kinds don't feel in a great spot, except Custodes, who are by all accounts very good. So we'll see. Just got to get used to it.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Nice. Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for listening, everybody. This has been a lot of fun. We will be back again soon, and we'll chat about some stuff. We're going to keep popping out those in-depths. Do keep commenting and liking. We've got narrative content down the line for you. We've got new bat reps, which will get made. There's going to be loads coming out over the next few weeks, so please join us for our 10th journey. We are all having fun. We're having a good time with it. We hope you are too, and we'll see you all again next time. Bye-bye.